So just real quickly, just in the small tail end of time we have before the drinks and snack session begins, I wanted to talk about at least one, if not two, brief topics. One has to do with identifying yourself as a researcher. As you heard, maybe you read this morning's session, Professor Hoffman said that the world of research is growing exponentially, particularly as additional countries sort of, you could say, come online. And the question is always, how do you differentiate yourself from all the other Dr. John Smiths in this world? Time once you could say, well, I'm the one who's studying such and such, but that's not even good enough anymore. Now there might be, 10 people all with the same name or very similar ones studying the same area. And then as a related topic to that, how do you also sort of assemble your total lifetime research output into one place and say, like, yes, I published that, didn't publish that. If it's sitting with a similar name or if something is perhaps amiss. The way that is, there's a number of ways emerging for that to occur. And one of the chief ones is what's called ORCID, O-R-C-I-D. Anyone heard of that before or signed up for it already? ORCID, those of you online right now, ORCID.org, without the H out of the flower. It stands for Online Research Community ID, identification. It's a consortia of publishers and universities, funders. Cornell is one of the original founding members of that sort of group. And the idea was that, has anyone here heard of what a DOI is? Okay, it's a digital object identifier. The idea is that, like, we're not really sure how permanent a permanent URL really is. Time was a document could be assumed to live somewhere forever online, but if it's not the case, then a DOI would serve as an identifier you could find, really forever, because it would be attached to the document itself. Well, the idea of this, of ORCID, would be that it was a, I see a browser, is that it would be a DOI for a person, and that it would go on to every single one of your publications, your applications for fellowships or funding or everything you put out there, and it would therefore allow you to instantly aggregate everything that you'd ever produced, and just the same way, sort of separate out everything that you would not produce. So I'll go to ORCID here, just bring up. It's taking a minute. And the idea is you could do this in that way. Something I heard about is that, in not too many more years, you as a graduate student or as a young faculty member or a researcher may not have the luxury of compiling your own CV anymore. It may just be something that's assembled sort of like algorithmically or automatically by someone doing a search like this. And you'll want to make sure that you, A, get credit for everything you did, and B, aren't associated with things you didn't do. This actually came up in a way sort of personal for me. My wife has a similar name to somebody out there. She's a materials scientist. This person was like a naturopath or herbalist doctor or something like that, and they published something, and she's like, we're not connected. So yeah. I guess I remember my own login just to show you the way this looks. It's going very slow. Anyway, just if you sign up for an ORCID ID, oh boy. All right, there we go.
You can use mine if you want to.
Well, good, because you're signed in already.
Remember the password.
It's already in there. Assuming it's going to work. Anyway, this is Henrik's computer. But the idea is when you sign up for this, you will get a 16-digit, I think, number, and that you can then attach that to all of your publications and other documents you produce. At the end, just stick it in somewhere, ORCID ID number, blank, blank, blank. And then also on ORCID.org, there's a profile that you can manage. And, I know I can almost hear the groans, like, oh, great, another profile to manage, another, social media account, so to speak. Well, the good news is that you don't have to do very much profile management if you don't want to. Just put your own name, any alternate forms of your name you use. If you get married and change your name, if you are from a country and you don't use your given name and you use another name while you're in the United States, associate that as well so that your name gets, okay, here we go. So this is what Henrik has done with his. Here's his number up on the top left there. Yes, 16 digits, 000, so forth. And you can do this part here, the actual profile management, what's your employment, what's your qualifications, but you don't really have to. This is just sort of additional gravy. You might want to put in how to reach you by your contact information, but that's not really required. Then the actual part that gets assembled sort of automatically is down here. So here's Henrik's 42 published works. These are the ones associated with here. And you can add more onto here. using tools. I'm trying to see what the options are for actually searching for additional publications. You can import a bibtext file. You can do it manually. All right, so this gives you a few choices: Crossref, ISNI, Research ID. Scopus is a huge resource. So any of these can be used to pull in your publications as they go out there. One of the reasons to sign up for this as well is because it's becoming a required field as you do things like submit publication. So more and more journals are requiring it, and also some funders are requiring it as well. So if you're applying for a fellowship or for money, you'll need to have an ORCID ID, or at least one of a group of possible allied IDs, like an ORCID ID, a Research ID, Research Gateway account if you have one of those. But they're all sort of connected together. So it's valuable for that reason. So consider getting an ORCID ID, and so the sooner you do it, the better. It's, you know, for people who have been publishing for years and years, it's perhaps less important. They're more well known. But as a new member of the research community, it's going to be very valuable to you. All right, so let me hit one more topic before we get to the end of this session, even though we technically are there already. So you've heard a little bit already about research metrics. This is a huge topic and could fill its own session very easily. But just to go over this briefly. I need to actually bring up something. You heard a little this morning and again during the first session today about impact factor. That has to do more with the quality of journal. Well, that's an H index, I'm sorry. Remember that one of the factors in that is that what is it actually analyzing? What is the world of citations looking at? If it says, like, you know, the number of citations that journal has had within a given 2-year period, remember that it doesn't analyze all citations in the world. Every database out there searches something and not something else. And the amount it searches varies. Databases you'll hear about tomorrow, like Web of Science, will analyze, you know, a huge number of journals, thousands and thousands, but certainly not all. There's nothing that out there that actually indexes all journals. But if we find, you know, one example, I mean, let's find just a sample paper. I'm interested in this light sail project being launched, I believe, later this year. Let's find one that's been cited the most times. Let's see. Cited. Your browser is very intrusive. Okay. All right. So the most highly cited one here is this paper from 1991. Magnetic sails, interplanetary travel was cited 64 times based on this. Let's find the same paper in another citation source just to see what this looks like. One that I know for a fact. Whoops. Oh. A different sort of galaxy of citation. All right, so you notice, in fact, even present it side by side here. This says, if you look on the left-hand side, this cited 194 times, whereas it actually indicates the citation ranking from Web of Science 64 times. The difference is that it's looking at more possible citations out there, looking at citations from books, from conferences, from, you know, gray literature, published things that are not actually in journals, like conference papers or conference posters, things like that. So these things can affect how highly ranked a citation actually is and how many people can report to have done it. And it can then adjust those equations like the H index or the journal impact factor significantly in some cases. So as I said, that can affect things a lot. I will also say that, again, this ties into the whole, you may not be assembling your own CV in years to come as you're applying for a job and they're asking for a look at someone's research output. The citation ranking is increasingly being used as at least a factor in that, if not the entire one. More departments are getting nicer about considering only as a single factor rather than as a dispositive factor. But pay attention to it and be aware that the way the citations you count can make a difference in that. All right, so that was a lot very quickly. Any questions about these smaller topics? As I say, I wish I had more time to go in depth in these. And I will actually a little bit tomorrow during my session on Web of Science on the databases. But for now,
is it that you just mention the ORCID ID, the data, and you add it to the...
Yeah, you can just add it to, like, for instance, your identifying information. So you would say, I would say Jeremy Cusker, Cornell University Library, ORCID ID, blank, blank, blank. Or I could put it at the end, acknowledgements and ORCID ID. As I say, in some cases, journals are actually adding a field for that. They'll have their own place in the body of the article where it actually will appear. Probably it'll appear in the PDF as well, so that it becomes really stuck to that article in the future. No questions? All right, well, we're now at a brief break period. We got some fresh coffee, and I believe there's some snacks outside, so let's take off until 2:45.